So here we are at the climactic battle of this truceless war. After Tunis, Carthage was kind of on the ropes, and while they were distracted, Romans up stealing Sardinia, something you can play out with Sword of Rome, of course. Now, and several other games, I'm sure, but Sword of Rome has that kind of neat dynamic where Carthage, or when somebody's in trouble, you can go pick things off of them. And I don't know, I enjoy it a lot. Anyway, Carthage raises another big force, but maybe 2/3 the size of the rebel force. The rebel force is much smaller as a rebel force in terms of rebellious mercenaries, but it's added a lot more Numidians and Libyans to it than we've seen before. Okay, so what do we have? Well, here's the rebel force sliding across. A lot of this mixed medium mainly and light infantry in the back row here. And this is their solid line, as it were, with cav on the wings. Numidian cav is over here. This is, I don't know, Greek style. I'm not sure if it really is. And then, what's wrong with this? The counter's kind of dinked. We even have some chariots here, and I'm going to have to look up the rules on chariots. And then in the front line, a bunch of light infantry, including slingers, which we all know how good the Balearic slingers tend to be, the Numidian lights, and then these, they're using Arabs for them, I think they're Libyans, javelin throwers, which aren't bad, but, well, they're not great. They're very low morale, tactical quality. We've got the Peltists behind, which are a little stronger in terms of tactical quality. So here we don't just have good old Hamilcar. We also have his buddy Hanno the Great, who, if you remember from the first of this series, whatever, Utica, was it? I don't know what we did first. Yeah. He had already lost a battle to the rebels very early on, and kind of went home in disgrace there. So he's been brought back though, and we've got two major wings, one under Hamilcar, one under Hanno, and using substitution counters, Hamilcar and Hanno. The wings are approximately equal. Seeing some phalanx units. I think that's just sort of a, they don't have to be those, you can use the heavy infantry, but I think as a nod to the level terrain, the Carthaginians would have been able to form into a more Greek style of fighting here, and they've had more time to train, I think is also part of it. Got some light infantry and these medium Mauritanians on the wings. In the front, hordes of elephants, one more than I have in my counter mix. I'm not sure, so I'm using an Indian as a substitute. I'll just reduce its value. Numidian cav streamed here. Sacred Band, another big force of cav on both sides. So again, in terms of mobile units, the elephants and the cav, Carthage way outnumbers what the rebels can put out. And then this back line is the Carthaginian levy, which, as we know, isn't really terribly powerful, but it does provide a good reserve, I guess, and can be a second punch. These lights might provide something of a speed bump to the elephants. We saw this before, where the elephants couldn't quite smash through without getting hit by the main line. Like with all these scenarios, the rebel commander is the only one who can make line commands. I think this is going to be interesting just because of the initial formation, basically. I really like the dual column positioning. Allows a lot of flexibility. I'm thinking possible slides to the flanks being really supported by this, especially with two overall commanders, which is the point here. Each of them counts as an overall commander. I think Hamilcar counts as an elite again, and Hanno does not, but that's okay. So it should be, I think this is going to be an interesting one. It's a little larger than any of the others, and I don't know if it's terribly balanced, because again, we've got that supreme mobility with the elephants and the cav on the Carthaginian side, but yeah, at least it certainly won't be fighting out the exact same battle just because it's so much bigger and it's got this nice two-column aspect that I'm really getting off on that, to tell you the truth. Just looking at this is exciting. So as the front line commands move forward, the heaviers and the elephants, for the Carthaginians, the I don't remember, Mathos or whatever his name is, has sort of sidestepped his line. Just, you know, turn, 1, 2, turn. In order to cover, there was kind of an exposed flank here. The elephant could have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and hit. So he had to move a couple of hexes down. This side is protected already. This is going to force the elephants to actually turn if they want to try to do flank attacks. I think that's probably in the best move. We've seen, even against these lights, where the elephants are quite, you know, fairly potent. An elephant against light infantry. They hit the front in an 11. That's pretty damn powerful. So, you know, it may not be worth that. It may be better to just break that force up and with a head-on attack. But giving the flank attacks seemed like too much of a benefit. On the other hand, let's see what else. Well, not really on the other hand, but something else I looked up. So there's no leader over here with the cav on the rebel left flank, and I was hoping to get a leader over there. I may still. But I started looking at the chariots, and there doesn't seem to be any special rules for them. I seem to remember there were, but I don't see any. But what's kind of cool, they have superiority against the heavier cav and against skirmishers. No big deal there. But they also have very good numbers, even on head-on attacks, against just about everything except legionary infantry, and of course elephants. So I'd kind of like to get them and save them to hit the real units here, as opposed to having to deal with the elephants with them. They're not bad against elephants. They're better than most things, but still, they're too potent a force, I think, to throw away on the elephants, given that I have so few of them. I feel, obviously, the cav is a very similar situation, except the cav doesn't even work against the elephants. And at the end of the first turn, this is our positioning. Carthage has moved up, spread their two columns a little bit more. I'm not sure whether or not that's wise, but going for that outflank type position made me push forward a little bit in two different directions. That leaves an empty center, of course, but, well, so far Carthage has been able to handle situations far worse than the gap that they're seeing here. So I'm counting on those columns to be able to pretty much just smash through this line the way they're built. The cav should be able to provide sufficient support. In the center itself, bit of a worry, maybe. I may end up seeing a converging of the two columns to slam in so that there isn't an exposed flank. Right now there is one, but I don't see the rebels taking the bait and trying to, they can't get an outflank on it even, so it's not of great value to them right now. Well, the attack is launched, the elephant's charging forward. I didn't try to converge. I'm not sure why. The advantage of hitting one unit each, it certainly makes it more likely to break the enemy. However, the elephants might be able to break two enemies. It would be really iffy, and only one would be facing two. So, the big disadvantage of this is that I've just charged into a bunch of javelins that hit better than mine do, and get two shots to my one in general, except for on the very end. And that meant that a lot of my elephants have taken decent amounts of damage. They're not going to take a lot from the actual attacks. We'll see that. We're probably not going to see any elephants breaking here, but they will be very weak and easily hit by the infantry. And the problem here, in both cases, is that both my sets of elephants move at the same rate. What I may want to do is withhold the second attack and force him to make his choice of whether or not to hit just half my elephants with the line and then give the other half a chance to recover. Another option would have been to move Mago up rather than bring the reinforcing forces up. That probably would have been a better move. In fact, I'm going to do that. I haven't precluded doing so. The reason for this is that Mago can now heal some of the elephants if they break that line entirely before they get hit. Those heavies can still come up under Hamilcar. So it just means perhaps slowing down the levies, which is fine. Even before contact, some of those lights have already broken and the elephants have pushed through. Now I had to make a decision here. Do I want to turn and face to outflank some of those lights? I believe I'm going to break that entire light line almost completely. There may be a couple units that survive though, and leaving them back there can be kind of an annoyance. I can mop them up though. It's more important not to present flanks to the heavy infantry that's coming up. Now I'll resolve the combats themselves. And here's the net effect. Pretty bad for the Carthaginians, actually. One elephant out of all of them routed, or went on a rampage. But it started a chain reaction where a total of 4 of the elephants ended up rampaging. One of the lights was destroyed. A bunch of others are running for the hills. There's no question there. But that's a big part of the Carthaginian striking force that got knocked out. Not a lot of TQ points. Speaking of which, for this the points are around 100. The rebel takes 100 exactly. The Carthaginians take 105 to withdraw. But we can see the risk whenever you bring the elephants in. They may just not really work. In this case, you know, certainly they cleared away that inferior force, but in doing so, they expended themselves almost entirely. Alright, well, let's see if Mago gets to rally any of them. And he will. So he'll probably be spending whatever other activations he has trying to fix his problems. Now I have to choose whether I want to do the same thing with Bowstar. And that was a particularly bad result, but I shouldn't see anywhere near that bad facing the Slingers. So I think I'm going to go ahead with it because I do need to break up their line in front in order to keep moving. Well, on Bowstar's flank we see the elephant line mainly scared the skirmishers away. They don't take as much damage against them. They broke it pretty much in perfect order here. But Bowstar didn't get a chance to fix any of his elephants. He also ran into some problems with the Numidian lights. Some of them broke. Nicely placed all in a line, but a couple of them on the flank held actually, and it's not a big deal. It was just it does provide a little bit more of a bump than we would have seen otherwise. So the Rebels looked at creating a second speed bump, essentially, rallying some of the lights to try to make it a little harder for the elephants to push forward. Yes, if they could get them out of the way, the heavier infantry could have maybe done a number on them, but these are largely untouched, and it would be nice to slow things down. Similarly over here, now this big gap makes it more valuable, I think, here. We also knocked out the last elephant when rambling around back here. The other alternative, of course, would be to use the chariots against the cav, which they're pretty good against cav. They're pretty good against any cav. And that would have been definitely an interesting alternative, but instead of that, I thought slowing the elephants down would be more helpful at this point, I guess. And preventing those routes. There's our final position at the end of this turn. Got the skirmishers and lights kind of reformed. Elephants moved forward. We got the cav has pushed forward kind of dangerously close, because now these Numenidians can start harassing the heavy cav, and that's going to be painful. They wanted to move forward to get a flank attack on some of the lights, but I think that was a mistake, actually. Attacks beginning on the elephants. He picked one off again. That elephant line is getting weaker and weaker. The phalanxes and the supporting infantry, because these are just lights here, move forward to take up the center line. See that we're getting slower movement on the levies. They're not really advancing as much as we might like. I'm not thinking that this is a Carthaginian shoe-in. The collapse of the elephants over here, and then the threats to their cav, the Numenidians over on their left flank, and on the right flank with the chariots especially. I'm not convinced. Well, they can run away from the chariots. That's the one advantage there. Of course, those light cav could slip around behind and try to pin some of their cav, and then hit them with the chariots, or if they're behind them anyway, just get the advantage there. So it could be a little trickier than one would expect. All right, this one's going up. Looks like it's developing kind of interestingly. Still fairly stable in terms of, the battle hasn't devolved into the chaos that it often does.